ended up calling him in February or March, and I basically just said, I should have asked you this a long time ago, and I'm kind of an idiot for not. But I would love to work for you for the summer. Can you hire me as an intern? And he said,
Hey, this is Patrick Curtis, CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis. Today we have a great chat with Chandler. Chandler joined us right before he was starting his non-target MBA. He had graduated from the University of Georgia, didn't ever think he'd go back to school at Georgia, but ended up getting a full ride. It was too much to turn down. He decided to go to the non-target route and invested himself through Academy, ended up landing in a great real estate private equity shop. Listen to how it happened. Can you give a quick summary where you're from, that type of stuff? And then from there,
Mhm.
usually ask about like what you were doing, at undergrad, why you went and got an MBA, and then kind of talking a little bit about, the whole progress of like, what you were going for, what your long-term goal was. I know you got to real estate private equity, so it's awesome. You're doing that this upcoming summer, right? Like right now or coming up?
You can do that right now. Yep.
Nice. So
Started last week, finishing up my second week of that internship now.
sweet. Okay, so we'll kind of just go over like the whole recruiting process for that. I'd love to like cover that. Is there anything you want to like stay away from or highlight specifically like in the when we like
Um, I mean, none in particular. I guess I was maybe just gonna, well, yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Let's do it. All right, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, Chandler, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Of course, yeah, thank you.
So I'd love it if you could just give the listeners kind of short summary bio, where you're from, all that good stuff.
So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in the suburbs, Alpharetta specifically. I got my undergrad from the University of Georgia at the Terry College of Business and Economics, um, and went to high school in Atlanta, went to private high school. Um, and yeah, and then I ended up working for a company based out of Athens, Georgia, where the university is located for the next 4 years out of undergrad. It was a vertically integrated commercial real estate firm. They sent me to Ann Arbor, Michigan, actually, where I worked for about 3 years and decided to come back and get my MBA. Wanted to change careers a little bit, and that is pretty much where I am now.
Yeah, and you had some great success, obviously. So we'll get into that. But let's start a little bit, just kind of like an undergrad. You're an econ major, right? Did you know that eventually you wanted to do finance, or was it like not even a thought process when you were going to college at that point?
It definitely was something I wanted to do while I was in undergrad. I just really wasn't sure um, exactly what I wanted to do. I graduated kind of during COVID, so the job market was a little, iffy. So I kind of had to take just one of the first opportunities I could. He was in real estate private equity, and so I talked to him because I knew that was something that I eventually wanted to do, or at least along the lines of what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And so he told me that the one aspect of development that he didn't understand that he wished he did was construction. And given the times, I got an opportunity to go manage construction projects. So didn't really have many other opportunities because of the way the economy was. So I took it.
Is that pretty
And it
typical to
was
be able to like be in a kind of leadership management role because you're coming out of the business school for construction, like in terms of having the under like how do you even like that you were managing like right out of school, like you're probably managing guys older than you, right?
and that was one of the biggest challenges, like first day on the job, was trying to sort of gain the respect of these guys who have been in construction for 30 years, their whole life, basically, since a lot of them since they were teenagers. That's all they've ever done. And they're pretty like hard-headed. So, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine. So that was a huge challenge to try to sort of gain their respect as, some kid who just got out of college, has never done this before, doesn't know what they're doing, and all of a sudden I'm telling them what to do.
And so yeah, I think they called you a project engineer, right? Was the title, but did they give you any training kind of leading up before they sent you off to Michigan like to do this? Like what?
No, I mean, they basically called me. I was just working at a golf course at home at the time, just as I was looking for jobs after college, and they called me and said, "How'd you like to go to Ann Arbor?" And there wasn't many other opportunities, so I said, "Yeah, let's do
Awesome.
it." I had a week to quit my job and move up to Ann Arbor, and I just hit the ground running. I didn't have any training, nothing. So yeah.
Was the pay pretty bad or was it like just whatever, like standard 60K?
Yeah, I mean, salary was standard 60K. I mean, the
I hit
incentive
it
was
right
the
on. I hit it right on, my guess. That's
starting was 55.
okay.
After the first year, I got an 11K raise, which was decent for a 1 year bump.
Yep.
But the incentive was they paid for all my living expenses. So I got my rent covered. I got like a flight home every month. I got
That's really cool.
all my bills paid for. I mean, it was just a flat rate.
Yep.
Turns out, when I got there, Ann Arbor was a very, very expensive place to live, and they were charging more for rent than they were actually paying me to live. So I eventually ended up getting a bump, but that cost of living stipend was the majority of my salary. It almost doubled my salary.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a big incentive, but financially it wasn't didn't necessarily. I spent it all.
And so when you were in an undergrad, were you doing a lot of like internships in finance at all? Had you done anything construction at all? Like why? Like because you
Did
mentioned
do
like
a
you had to quit your job at a golf course, like a golf course. So like what led you to that?
mhm.
Was it because you were graduating in a bad time, you weren't able to land something? That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was just like a holdover job. So I was just doing that to earn
You were
a
paid
little bit of
hourly
extra cash.
at the
Yeah, I was paid hourly, just working for tips basically, just a service industry job just to hold me over until I found a real job. I did not have any finance internships. I did have an internship in development. It was with a residential home builder.
got it. Okay, so you get a pay raise, even though it's 55, it's really more like 100, 110 because you're paying for everything. So
Yeah,
then
100 to 128
yeah,
or
which is
something.
pretty good right out of school, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, in looking back, you probably realize that now, like how big of a perk that was. But
definitely.
in terms of like coming out of school, you're getting paid well, but probably there's not as much like growth potential. So you were up in Ann Arbor for 3.5 years. Talk to me a little bit about like how you progressed. You got a big pay bump in the first year. Was it similar in year two and year three? And then talk to me about like what was your thought process of like, hey, MBA probably makes sense right now.
The pay bump completely fell off. I got like I think that was 19% after my first year.
Yeah.
And then second year, it was like 3%.
Oh, okay.
So it was like an extra $20 a paycheck or something like that
Which is
after
crazy
my
because wasn't
second year.
inflation taking off then? Wasn't
Yeah, yeah, it
oh.
was. Yeah, our bonuses fell way off. So, I mean, there was even one point where they asked me to come back to the office because I had a business degree. Project management was more along the lines of the path that they were putting me on. And so I said, well, I mean, I'm open to it, yeah, but what's my pay going to look like? You're basically asking me to take a $40,000 pay cut. And they said, well, yeah, that's basically going to be what happens. So I was like, well, I mean, I do enjoy being here in the field, seeing everything like happen daily. So no, I don't really want to come back and take that pay cut. Um,
And
but
that was take come back, go back to Georgia at the home office kind of thing.
yes,
Got it.
yeah,
So you were still
yeah.
doing
So
projects for them in Michigan and stuff like that. Okay.
correct, yeah, yeah. We hadn't even finished the first project yet when they had asked me to come back. So I did at least want to see that project through up there. Um,
Is it
so
commercial real estate or residential?
I guess it's kind of it is multifamily housing,
Got it. Okay.
um, building high-rise apartment buildings,
Got it. Okay.
student housing specifically.
Makes sense. Okay. And then,
Yeah.
okay, so you're kind of what, like approaching year three. What's going through your head? Or do you like, I got to take the GMAT or the GR? Like,
Yeah. So approaching year three, I was basically, I mean, 18 months in, I was starting to get promised a promotion. You're doing a great job. This end of this project, your promotion's coming. So, that's keeping me happy. Project, we finish it, comes along, I get no promotion. My pay raise, as we mentioned, was not good. I didn't know what happened.
Did you
My
you flag
performance
them?
reviews,
Did you talk to them about it? Be like, hey,
yeah, multiple times.
and what they say?
Um, they just kind of, pushed me along, just kind of said, yeah, it's coming, and, just we're stringing the carrot along. So they, and then my performance reviews were glowing reviews. I had, like my supervisor at the time said he doesn't give anybody 5 stars, but he gave me all, as high as he typically goes without giving 5 stars. So it was 4.5, 4 stars. And so he had no complaints, so I didn't know what was going on. So that was kind of the first indicator to me that I was like, well, I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life anyways.
Yeah.
This was kind of a stepping stone to get more into um, either development or the finance side of real estate. I wasn't really sure at the time, but either way, this was kind of the tipping point for me to go back to school to get my MBA.
Okay, and as you're thinking about the MBA, obviously, did you take the GMAT?
Did not actually. I didn't have to. Georgia, well, they said if you wait 3 years to apply, you can waive it. So I was like a month away from that 3 years. So I just
What's your thought
I was
process
able.
going back to Georgia? Because oftentimes, I'll advise students like if they're at an undergrad, like X school, to not stack like a master's in finance at the same school. It's a little bit better that you went and worked for several years before going and getting the MBA, but still you lose a little bit of the optionality doing the MBA at the same school you did the undergrad. Talk to me about like the thought process. Was it more like in-state tuition? What is there like, yeah, talk to me about that.
And I had the same thought process. I was never thought I was going to go to the same school for grad school as I did for undergrad, for the reasons you said. I did not think it was the best option. But I applied to Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, and North Carolina, and then Georgia. Georgia was the first ones to get back to me, and they offered me a full ride. And yeah, in-state tuition, full ride scholarship. I'm closer to home. I'm closer to family. I've been away for 4 years. I've lived in Georgia my entire life, except for those 4 years almost in Michigan. So I was at that point kind of ready to come home. I would have loved to go to Michigan had I not spent the last 4 years in Ann Arbor. But yeah, so it was it was a hard decision to kind of say no to Georgia, just because of my circumstances. And then also, I go to any of those other schools, I'm going to be $250,000 in debt at the end of it. I come to Georgia and, I just have to take out loans for cost of living, and it's probably going to be 50 grand in debt or less.
Yeah.
So, that is mostly what made me come back to Georgia was that scholarship.
Fair enough. Did you end up like hearing from the other schools? Were you admitted to any of them?
I did not get into Notre Dame, but North Carolina and Vanderbilt I did. But it was like I missed the first deadline, so it was the second deadline. So it was,
Harder.
you know, yeah, it was harder. One, two, it was way later in the process, and I had kind of already, had 4 months to think about the decision,
Yeah.
no matter what happens. And so even before I heard back from any of them, I kind of had already made the decision that it just makes more sense either way.
Okay, so talk to me now about like you're going to Georgia, you're going back home, going into like before kind of starting that first year, what's in your mind for targets? Like what's in your mind? Like how well like how knowledgeable were you going into that first year? How crazy early recruiting is for like things like investment banking or private equity or whatnot? Like
I was not
you weren't
knowledgeable at all about it, really.
you weren't
Um,
on the Wall Street Oasis forums yet or anything like that.
yeah, I mean, I was following you guys on Instagram, but that
Yep.
was
Too many fin memes,
about
not
it.
enough education.
Right. Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, I guess it is kind of funny in hindsight. I don't mean to say anything ill about the University of Georgia. I just think their MBA program's a little newer.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of this going in, but their graduate school doesn't really have a ton of resources for finance careers.
Is it
And
more consulting or is it more like
yeah,
Fortune 500
it's
type? Yeah.
mostly consulting.
Okay.
So yeah, they have a ton of resources and a ton of help, and a ton of relationships with companies for consulting jobs.
Yeah.
But for finance jobs, it just doesn't really exist. I mean, they told me first day during orientation, they set us each down individually and said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'm looking at IB and PE." And they said, "Well, good luck, basically. You're kind of on your own."
Okay.
And so that's when I was already sort of considering Wall Street Oasis, but that's when I really was like, well, I think this is definitely going to be a worthwhile investment if I don't have any help from the university. I can't do this on my own. I'm going to need some sort of help somewhere. And so yeah, I mean, but at the same time, that did kind of make me rethink my decision of schools.
Hey,
I could
no
have
debt,
gone to
no debt, no debt.
right, yeah.
Just keep telling
Yeah,
yourself, I'm
just a
not
little
paying
bit
for
of
this.
extra hard work. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, either way, just
Well, if you
just a
think
little
about
bit
it,
of
you
extra
kind of
hard
like,
work. And
if you think about it, like in retrospect, it worked out and you kind of had like a cheat code, whereas like you got like a super
Mhm.
cheap, you paid the tuition to us, which is
Yeah.
significantly less than any other
Oh,
business.
yeah, that
Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's still, even though I had to pay a little bit of extra money to pay tuition to Wall Street Oasis, it still saved me a ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like once you realize, okay, I'm gonna need some extra help, you make the decision to enroll, you enroll, we start kind of going through your resume, your LinkedIn profile. Talk to me a little bit about like your approach. Like, did you realize at that point, like, I need to be ready by like October, November, or like I need to get everything in? Did we quickly
Yeah.
like set you straight, I hope?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
That first semester of the MBA program was extremely rigorous. And I mean, I've had people in investment banking currently telling me like that was the hardest 6 months of my life. And
Yeah.
um, I mean, it really was very difficult. And I mean, I would say I was doing 80 plus hour weeks that first semester, but it felt so much harder, and then just trying to juggle. I have a graduate assistantship, so they're allowed to work us 13 hours a week.
Oh,
Um, Started the Wall Street Oasis program. They said that you needed a
yeah.
lot 10 hours a week minimum, and then school. I was in 18 hours, so yeah, it was a lot. I mean, in hindsight, I almost wish I maybe just pushed Wall Street Oasis off until this upcoming fall, so that way I could really get the most out of it and focus on it way more. Um, but
The thing
you
is, if you
know,
were targeting IB, you don't have that. You didn't have that
yeah,
cushion,
exactly.
right? So
Yep.
talk to me a little bit about that. So, kind of IB recruiting happens. There's almost no on-campus recruiting, I assume, there. So like you have to basically make your own, your own thing. It sounds like you were super busy because you were working, plus heavy course load, plus the just normal classes. So,
Hmm.
talk to me a little bit about like, were you able to even like when you started networking, were you able to get on enough calls? Like, how many calls did you end up doing before like the October kickoff? Like, typically when
I was not able to get on near enough calls.
you
It
didn't get enough
was
calls, basically.
no, no, not near enough. Yeah, it was extremely difficult. I mean, I was trying to send out 10 plus message requests or, networking requests like uh, a week, but I really should have been doing that a day. I mean, I should have multiplied whatever the number was by 10 because I didn't have the network essentially. I couldn't necessarily target bulge bracket or middle market or boutique or anything like that. Obviously everybody gets a lot of no responses. But I think my market, I guess, was a little bit smaller.
Oh yeah.
So then I started having to go through like my friends and family and who all I know personally that has kind of gone through that route. Um, and I mean, I just hit tons of dead ends. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, I did used to work for JP Morgan, but I may have burned that bridge when we left or when I left. And then, I haven't worked in 10 years or whatever. I'm a mom now and, just stuff like that. So it was just dead end after dead end. And then, I kind of had to start focusing on like just the real small boutique banks that were local more so.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, at that time, it was too late.
You were drowning. You're drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this
I,
is what, like November, December, you're not getting a first round, you're just
mhm.
talking to maybe like 15, 20 people instead of
Yeah.
like the 50 to 100 we like to see.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So
I mean, I guess
yeah,
in total, I'd probably spoken to over 50, but I guess networking was not a strong suit of mine in undergrad, and I still am working on it.
yeah, what happened with your recruiting and stuff? So like how did it pan out? Because like obviously there was it's a great story in terms of, you being able to land in real estate private equity.
Ended up getting 4 or 5 contacts from them. I think out of those 8 to 10, I got one response. Um, and I did end up talking to her, but this company, I guess I won't say their name. They don't hire MBA summer interns,
Okay.
which in hindsight makes sense to me that a lot of banks wouldn't want to hire MBA
Yeah.
interns. It just, you know, um, so, that was another dead end. But ended up calling him in February or March. And I basically just said, I should have asked you this a long time ago, and I'm kind of an idiot for not, but I would love to work for you for the summer. Can you hire me as an intern? And he said, um, yeah, honestly, I would hire you right now and not even interview you because I know you're way more qualified than these other interns that we're hiring. And so yeah, I'll get the process started. And I mean that was basically it.
That's
It
amazing.
was
You just like
it was
had
a
the
good
guts to actually
connection.
ask for it at some point.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly right. I didn't really have the guts to ask for it right away. And I guess I was a little closer with the other guy before all this. This guy I'm working for now was is a little intimidating on the outside, but so that was kind of why I didn't really have the guts to ask him. But I it just came to it, and I was like, this was what I said I always wanted to do. I know this guy is extremely smart and extremely good person to learn from. He got his graduate degree from Vanderbilt, and his undergrad from Georgia, and I I, th- I think the opportunity was staring me in the face the whole time, and I just didn't ask.
It's
And
awesome.
I mean, honestly, that was, I think, part of the problem with my networking was I wasn't asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Did you feel like,
so, yeah.
do you feel like, I mean, because I'm looking at like, I can see your student dashboard. I see you put a lot of hours in the courses. I
Mhm.
assume there was a little bit of imposter syndrome earlier on, or like, I can't really do this, or I can't really ask for this.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel like that by 2025, maybe you had a little bit more confidence after doing so many courses and stuff? And
Yeah. I still don't feel like I know what I'm talking about, but I think that's normal. So I mean, yeah, that was pretty much exactly it. Is like I just was exposed myself enough to everything that I at least just had the confidence to ask and be able to, somewhat talk the talk or, yeah, it was just I definitely gained a lot more confidence to be able to do that.
it's great. And then kind of looking back, so obviously like you're doing that internship right now in real estate private equity. Kind of looking back, is there anything you would have changed coming into recruiting or into, even the MBA decision? Anything like you would change looking back or advice you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, at first I was thinking I'd wish I maybe had gone to a different school. Um, but kind of like we had talked about, I do think at the end of the day, it probably was the right decision. I think I got all the resources I need between the university and Wall Street Oasis. And, I guess the one thing I do wish I did that I didn't do is when I got here my first semester, I was very focused on grades. I knew in undergrad, you can't get into IB without a 4.0 or being at the top of your class. And all my professors, all they said was, nobody cares about your grades. And I was like, well, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt because I think what I'm trying to get into, they do. So I was very focused on school. And to be honest with you, I was never a great student. I didn't really apply myself. So, I mean, it was amazing what happened when I actually applied myself. I didn't have a perfect 4.0, but I got pretty close. And so, but at the same time, I think maybe I spent a little more time on school than I should have, and I should have spent way more time on recruiting.
There's no,
Um,
yeah, when I was at Wharton, there's grade non-disclosure, so they take away that even need
yeah,
for that. So I assume Georgia doesn't have that?
no,
Yeah, so like
unfortunately.
you're not even like allowed to put your grades on your
Right.
CV. So you didn't have that unfortunately. So I think it made it even tougher. Plus you're working part-time, man. Like that's a big deal. Those 13
Mhm.
hours could have been used for networking.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So
yeah,
I think
that
overall, like it's still a great story. I think it's like, non-target MBA from like construction manager to real estate private equity is a pretty amazing outcome. Is there anything else kind of you like looking back that you'd share kind of in terms of like not overwhelming yourself, don't focus too much on grades. What else in terms of like
um
step of MBA?
you know, I mean that those were the two main things. I mean also don't give up. There was 8 kids in my program that wanted some sort of high finance role,
Yeah.
and only 3 of us ended up uh, taking in or even getting internship offers in those areas. So and they got discouraged come January, February, and then eventually just gave up.
Uh,
So that is definitely a big thing is you can't give up. We've put in all of this work studying all these long hours on campus and everything, and so it kind of sucked to see some of my classmates giving up, but
Maybe you
it
can still encourage
happens.
them. It's not over yet. So you still got to
Yeah,
give.
exactly. It isn't over. That's the thing is, we still got a chance to go through full-time recruiting in the fall.
Yeah. So heads down, try to get the return. Thanks for talking to us.
Hmm.
I appreciate you sharing our story. I think it'll be inspirational. Some people who are kind of non-targets and MBAs know
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.